Simply gave away all the assets in the country to people who told them off and run this private business instead.
And without your morality. I'm so sad. I was so sad when you left, but I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be back here at the Cour School, and it's particularly good to be able to talk about this nexus between global peace and global democracy. Schools, when I talk to them, what is it that you can't buy, but the more you have it, the more money you save? It's peace. And of course, peace is something we have always aspired to and that we must work for, and your contribution to that is extraordinary. And the quantification of it, and which leads to the discussion of how we get it and what it will, why in a world that's obsessed with the GDP and the economic well-being, and it is a measuring stick that we have, why peace is a vital contributor to that common well-being and the wealth, not just of nations, but the wealth of the planet, the commonwealth of the planet, is incredible. And I'm very delighted to have this opportunity to thank you for all the work you've done and will continue to do, and which is coming out of your thinking for this planet. We are in a world in which we have to aspire to one person, one vote, one value, one planet, because there is no other peaceful option. And I'm very pleased to be able to give you Chris Hamer's terrific, I think the best book on earth about the principles of world federation and global governance and democracy. And these two things, Global Peace Index, global parliamentary idea to the GPIs of the future, work beautifully together. So it's a terrific coming together of two great ideals, peace and democracy. They work hand in hand, they enhance each other, and they are the hope, not just of us, but our forebears, and the right of those who come after us. So everybody who's working for it is doing the right thing by the future of this planet and all people who will follow us on it. Thank you so much for GPI. Thank you for the work you've done for peace and will continue to do, and for giving that incredibly important assignment of value beyond the obvious. We all want peace, which helps give peace a chance in global dialogue. Incredibly important.
Canberra, preparing for our third Model Global Parliament, which will take place in this historic building in the centre of Australia's capital.
Well, thank you, Tony. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and the museum for having us in this living place of discussion in Canberra. There are, it's speculated now, some hundreds of billions of planets like this one in the universe. It's a bit beyond our ability to think about it. We've identified 6 that might be like Earth around stars at the right distance to be currently entertaining life, but we don't know whether or not there's life on them. We can reasonably expect that there are some billions which would be suitable for life. But after all of that, here in this moment, we 7 billion people on this planet, we're a big herd of mammals inhabiting the planet and dependent upon its biosphere. Know of no other place in the whole universe which has life, intelligence, awareness, and the ability to reflect upon what it is to exist in the universe. We're it. And yet this little planet is being degraded rapidly by ourselves. 65 million years ago, a big rock hit the planet somewhere near Mexico and sent the dinosaurs to extinction. But since then, we have seen life burgeon on the planet, the evolution of mammals, and through us, intelligence and the ability to change the biosphere. And we're doing it rapidly. We're seeing the greatest rate now of extinction of fellow species since the dinosaurs were destroyed by an event they couldn't control. We are in full control of this event. And we're marauding the biosphere and our ability to go into the future at a greater rate every day than the day before. And there's only one thing that's going to stop this process coming to a very nasty conclusion. Some scientists predict the population at the end of this century will be 1 billion, not 10 billion, because we're in an age of mass destructive weapons, and we know from history human beings are quite capable of using them. Only one thing can save us from such an outcome, and that's our own God-given intelligence. And that's the challenge we are tangling with today. There is global governance already, and it's by the wealthy. Talking about this last night, it's called a plutocracy, rule of the rich, the big corporations, Coca-Cola, News Corporation, Rio Tinto, BHP, Exxon, and so on. And now new global corporations based in China, India, and won't be long before they'll come from Africa and South America. And just yesterday we read in the Australian newspapers about the rapid melting now of Antarctica and the release of methane, which may bring forward 2 degrees of global warming by 25 to 30 years. And another article in Nature magazine which says current release of methane from just part of the northern hemisphere, which is melting, will cost the global economy some $65 trillion. And we know that the impact on our grandchildren on the most conservative estimates of climate change will be 6 to 20% of their gross national product. But worse than that, we don't measure this, will be the impact on their state of happiness. Because huge cities like Shanghai, Calcutta, Sydney, New York will be rapidly becoming uninhabitable due to the expanse of oceans. And we know all this, but we're not treating it seriously. And we won't treat it seriously until we have a global response to it. Because until you have everybody's equally responsible approach to this, those who are gaining most monetarily and in the short term out of continuing the destructive process will continue to do so. So, hence the idea of a global parliament, a global democracy. The first thing to be said about it is it's inevitable, it's coming. Ideas with great logic match our great intelligence. Giving women the vote, ending slavery, writing, a whole range of things had inevitability written into them. So does global governance by this large mammal horde called humanity. Has inevitability. The only question is whether catastrophe will get there first. There is urgency about it. And global governance means one person, one vote, one value on one planet and for one planet. And it is critical to a single undertaking. That is, we as human beings go on into the future to learn more about where we've come from, what we're doing here, where we're going to, and what this extraordinary universe is about. And to ensure that people are sitting talking about this matter like we are doing today, 50 years from now, 500 years from now, 50,000 years from now. That is what this project is about. Yet when Iraq was invaded by President George W. Bush and Tony Blair and our own Prime Minister Howard back in 2003, to remove a tyrant who was then dictator of that country and to replace it with democracy, it struck me as a senator in the Australian Parliament that if we went to war to implement democracy, why not do it peacefully? So I proposed in the Australian Parliament that we, in this wealthiest country on earth per capita, that's UN figures, propose a global parliament where issues of global importance, like the transfer of money, which is hugely profitable to individuals at the moment, like the control of weapons of mass destruction, not least nuclear weapons, which President Obama says are the greatest danger confronting humanity at the moment. Like the mass migration of people and how to deal with climate change, could be dealt with sensibly at a global level. So I proposed a global parliament to deal only with those issues, not to interfere in domestic issues. And I was quite surprised in a parliament which claims to be one of the 4 oldest continuous democracies on the planet, to find my fellow Green, there were 2 of us at the time, Kerry Nettle, supported my motion, but of the 76 senators, we were the only 2. The other 74 voted against a global parliament. And it said something very powerful to me. That is, those of us who have wealth don't want to share it. And democracy is about equality. Democracy is about giving everybody a fair go. And we are challenged. Machiavelli, the great commentator on political events in Italy 600 years ago said, if you want to change the world, get ready to be crushed by those who have money and power. And nothing's changed. But we are challenged to move to global democracy, one person, one value, one vote for one planet. Because the alternative is catastrophe. Ongoing, unfolding catastrophe, part of which we are in at the moment. And we can see it happen. The sea level has risen 20 centimetres in my lifetime. Population on the planet's gone from 2.5 billion to over 7 billion in my lifetime. We are currently using 120% of the Earth's living renewable resource. 120% at the moment. And if we have everybody on the planet consume as much as I do, as an average Australian, then we will need, and we see current projections for growth, by mid-century we'll need 3 planets. And we've only got one, and there's no planet nearby for us to book in and exploit the way we're exploiting this one. There is a screaming urgency for global democracy. And that does require some transfer of power from current national democracy. And it does require us to think as global citizens, not as Australians or Chinese or Americans or Peruvians or Ghanaians. And that's a big change in the way we think. It may even go against our instincts as natural beings on this planet. Nevertheless, that's the task which confronts us. Abraham Lincoln said in 1863 at the Gettysburg Address, where the US went to war over slavery, that this war was to defend democracy lest it disappear from the face of the earth. And this is a global, not a national issue that we confront. So it is a remarkably important event that we are here discussing today. It's not on the agenda of global parliaments around the world, that is, national parliaments. It is on the agenda of good people at the UN who want a globally elected but powerless Citizens' Assembly to parallel the UN General Assembly, which is not democratically elected but appointed. And that is a stepping stone forward. But whatever, this has been part of human thinking all the way through. By the way, Socrates said back in 1500 BC in Greece, I am not a Greek. I am not an Athenian. I am a citizen of the earth. This thinking's been there all the way through human history, that we should be united on the basis of one person, one vote, one value, one planet. But our job is to act on it and to make it a reality. Because, I say again, the alternative is human catastrophe and the loss of everything we hope for. It's as important as that. So I congratulate those of you who will go on to work on this. I congratulate everybody who's been involved in getting us today to talk about this. All great movements begin with small beginnings, and we are a small beginning. But I ask those of you, I'm getting towards the end of my life, and I've had a very rewarding one. But humanity goes on, individual life starts and finishes, but the whole flow of humanity, our common intellect, doesn't die with any individual or begin with any individual, it just flows on. And a central component of this collective conscience of 7 billion people has to be we are here together. We share a common destiny, we're not separate anymore, we are in a global commons, and we must have a global parliament, based on a global democracy, based on the recognition that we are all equal, everybody on this planet is equal and has an equal right to say. And I finish with this. If we had a referendum today on the spending this year of $2 trillion on arms, meant to kill each other, which asked that 10%, $200 million, be diverted to ensure that every child on the planet have good food in her or his belly, clean water, and so important, a school to go to. If we had a referendum tomorrow, or today on that matter, I know what the result would be. It would be a resounding yes, because trust the global intellect of 7 billion citizens, you'll get that answer. Leave it to the plutocracy and national selfishness that governs the world today, and the answer is no, we won't divert 1% of it, let alone 10% of it, to that obvious, remarkably important and urgent cause. Let's go global democracy. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Well, I think that's a pretty holistic speech we've just had. Very, very hard to follow. But I'd just like to pick up on a couple of words of Tom's and also Bob's. If we look at the world today, the major challenges facing us are global in nature. Things like climate change, ever-decreasing biodiversity, full use of fresh water on the planet. But underpinning all of that, I think this is the elephant in the room no one talks about, is overpopulation. Unless we have a world which is basically peaceful, we'll never get the levels of trust, cooperation, or inclusiveness necessary to solve these problems. Therefore, I'd argue, and I'd argue strongly, that peace was a prerequisite of the survival of society as we know it in the 21st century. And this, my friends, is different than any other epoch in human history. In the past, peace may have been the domain of the altruistic, but in the 21st century, it's in all our self-interests. But this poses a very fundamental question, just a very fundamental question. What do we actually know about peace? So I'll share a personal experience with you. Why am I actually standing here? It would have been about 8 years ago. I was wandering through the Congo, East Kivu to be precise, as one does, looking for aid projects. And I suddenly started to wonder, what was the opposite of all these stressed out nations I was spending time in? What were the most peaceful nations in the world? And what could I learn from those nations, which could possibly bring into the projects I was doing? So, having a computer background, went in, searched the internet and couldn't find a thing. So I then approached a gentleman called Stuart Rees, who's a good mate of mine. Said, well look, what are the most peaceful nations in the world? And he started to rattle a few off his head, like Sweden. And I said, well, that's just what you would think. Where is some methodology to prove it? Scratched his head, came back later, 3 weeks later, and had nothing. But that poses this really fundamental question. If a simple businessman like yourself can be wandering through Africa and wonder what are the most peaceful nations in the world, what do we actually know about peace? If you went into any of the peace and conflict centres in the world, 90% of what they study is conflict. It's not actually peace. And peace is quite a different proposition than conflict. Look at positive psychology. What does it take to have a positive and fulfilling life? Very, very different what you do than what you need to do to stop psychic trauma. Very, very different. So, I've been through many of the major universities in the world talking on this subject. I've said this at Oxford, I've said it at Harvard. You could go into any of the economic faculties around the world, in any of the major universities, and you won't find a course on the economics of peace. Yet, work we've done with the UN Global Compact, surveying their business leaders, 80% of the business leaders believe the size of their markets increase with peace, and their cost structures actually decrease. You could go into any of the major universities in the world and you could start to go into the literature department and look at the courses on the literature of peace. None. Yet everyone in this room at some stage would have been moved by something they've read, some literature on peace. Even the language we've got isn't adequate to describe peace. In the Japanese language, there's 14 different words to describe beauty. In the English language, we have one. And peace is like that. There's the peace we use for negative peace, the Global Peace Index, which is the absence of violence. Then there's positive peace, which is the attitude, institutions and structures to create peace. Or we could look at Buddha's concept of peace, which is absence of afflictive emotion. So the definition of peace and the way you want to use peace is situational, depending on the conditions around you. But as Bob and myself sits down, has a chat, Tom and myself sits down and has a chat, we use for the word peace. They're different in our minds. Now, can anyone imagine a planet which is peaceful? Totally peaceful? Well, this room's peaceful. Well, maybe it won't be so peaceful in a few minutes when we actually start to get into debate what a world government should be. Now it brings us up to the concept of conflict. Built right within the universe. Bob talked about the size of the stars. So today, in the known galaxy, and then there's the unknown galaxy as well, the estimates are there's 600 sextillion solar systems. That's 6 with 14 zeros after it, just to be precise. Now, the whole of the nature of the universe is based on conflict. We're living in a 3rd generation star. We're all made up of the stardust of the universe. How do galaxies come about? They collide and they smash. It's conflict. The very nature of human existence is based on the concept that we have to eat other living creatures to survive. What's more ingrained in the nature of conflict than that? So it comes back to actually having the words in the language to describe it. That we don't have. And this is just a simple example of what we don't know about peace. But if we don't study it, how can we actually understand it? So, if peace is a prerequisite for the survival of society in the 21st century, and we need that to get the cooperation and inclusiveness necessary to solve our problems, we need to have a peaceful world. But just back to conflict. People would say there's positive conflict, and there's negative conflict. It's just unavoidable. So why don't we have words like positive for positive conflict, which will be a debate which happens in here today, or negatively, for when I pick up my axe and go for the next person who disagrees with me. But one of the things which fundamentally moves society is money. And there are aspects about that which are greed and very, very bad. There are other aspects about it which are good. So, calculations we've done, and these are very, very conservative calculations. The cost of violence of the global economy last year was about $9.46 trillion. That's out of an economy of about 70 trillion worldwide. Now, last year, the ODAs, official ODAs, were about what we spent on the Millennium Development Goals globally was about 60 billion. So that's 0.5% the cost of violence in global society. Now, if you took the investment, the same amount again, you could actually, for that investment, double the amount of, increase the peacefulness of the planet by 1%. You'd have approximately 100% return on your investment. People don't actually think that way, nor are there even the models to be able to understand what the return on your investment is. On that point, I'll stop.
If we could have honourable members of Parliament from Africa. Honourable Members of Parliament from Commonwealth of Independent Nations, Honourable Members of Parliament from corporations linked with UN Global Compact, please respond by saying you're here and present, that you're here. Honourable Members of Parliament for Europe, Honourable Members of Parliament from Global Civil Society Organizations, Honourable Members of Parliament from Global Science and Innovation Advisory Council, SciECN, Honourable Members of International Confederation of Trade Unions, Honourable Members from the International Network for Art and Culture, Honourable Members from Latin America, Honourable Members from the Mayors of Global Cities, Honourable Members of the Middle East, Honourable Member of North America, Honourable Members from North Asia, Honourable Members from South Asia, Honourable Members for Southeast Asia and Oceania, Honourable Members from the universities, Honourable Members from volunteers worldwide,
Present.
Honourable Members from the World Indigenous Network, Honourable Members from the World Parliament of Religions. Thank you very much. Honourable Members of Parliament, it is my great honour to be elected Speaker of the second session of the third session of the Model Global Parliament here in the historic Old Parliament House in Canberra. Thank you for voting me, and I'd also like to congratulate you on your election, representing the different regions and groups that bring us together in this global union, global democracy. A parliament plays a big role in a democracy, whether it's an old or new democracy or a global democracy that we're trying to establish here. Parliament allows a democratic scrutiny, and more importantly, dialogue. A dialogue of the different groups that are represented here as we come together. And this is particularly pertinent as the world today faces multifaceted transnational challenges that need global responses. And we need to start thinking of ourselves as global citizens, and this global parliament should facilitate that dialogue and that interaction. As members of parliament, your responsibility is to speak as the leaders of the different constituencies that you represent here. You're the voice that needs to be heard for a better global policy. As elected representatives, individually and collectively, we are not only products but also custodians of democratic values. And this must set the tone for the dialogue and debate today. We want to hear that the distinguished members of parliament, all of you, representing different regions. And I hope you start to think of us as the global citizens in this process. So I encourage, as the Speaker of the House, for all members to have a voice and speak up. While you, of course, can vote as a bloc, at the same time, there's no compulsion, and each vote counts. So as a result, I would like to emphasize that everybody in this room is equal, and that is the underlying principle of the global parliament and the global governance we're talking about. As a speaker, I have my responsibilities as well, and it is a traditional role in the modern global space of global polity that we're talking here. And I'll uphold that with the highest levels of integrity and fairness to make sure everybody is heard and to facilitate the dialogue in that manner. And therefore, I believe that as the elected representatives to this august house, members of parliament, we can make a difference to the constituencies we represent. So before further ado, I would just like to highlight that my role here is to be a referee or umpire in the discussions, and your role here is to bring up the issues that you represent, the motions, and debate that for a better outcome. As a speaker, I'll entertain points of information, points of order, and points of privilege. We also hope that there will be some degree of heckling and the discussions to make it interactive. And on top of that, we also strongly encourage discussion between the groups and within the groups and also negotiation between the groups. Because one of the, I think the realities that we recognize is that for global solutions, we do need global dialogue, but also global agreements. And for a global consensus, there is no alternative for us to come together, and for that we need negotiations. So I think based on the principle that if we all come together, we have a stronger voice and stronger vote. And hence, for during the Parliament is in session, during the session, please feel free to speak to your fellow representatives from other constituencies. Also during the break, to have those, to undertake those negotiations, which might lead to perhaps even joint proposals or at least supporting the motions from other groups there. We should now move to give you just an overview of the order of business today. Honourable distinguished members of Parliament, you should have a program with you. And here we are honoured today to have Professor Chris Hamer of the University of New South Wales to address the House.
Yes, listen, you've heard from all the previous speakers. Why do we want a global parliament? And the answer is very simple. Global problems need global solutions. And we're confronted with quite a number of global problems. For instance, there's still 17,000 nuclear warheads out there. How do we get rid of them? Climate change. It's something maybe over 20 years since the Rio Earth Summit. Still the world hasn't figured out what we're going to do about climate change. The old problems of the third world. Poverty, disease, deaths. It's apparently still true that about something like 20,000 children die every day from preventable deaths, malnutrition or disease. That's actually a major shame to our modern society. And then there's human rights. Still, from time to time, we see huge disasters like the massacre of 800,000 people in Rwanda, or displacement of 1 million people in Darfur. So we still have a few problems to solve. What we need is a global parliament where we can sit down, discuss the problem, decide what needs to be done, and do it. And we have the United Nations. It does a fantastic job on a shoestring budget, but it's just not sufficient for our needs. Tan, wherever it is, says we need to implement also the positive side, the benefits that this would bring. And I can mention nearly 100 years ago, H.G. Wells wrote down that if we had a sufficient measure of global governance to bring equal opportunity to all the children born into the world, it would produce such a release of energy as to start a whole new stage in human history. The benefits would be huge. As for the model global parliament, you yourselves have put together a compendium which Pierre has distributed, and it's all there. I think you've got the idea. It was a very uplifting sort of document, a compendium of ideas and long descriptions of what we might do. So the model global parliament is an example of what can be done. It's a place where you can practice the skills, where you can discuss the issues, and where we can sort of publicise the whole agenda behind this idea of a global parliament, global democracy, and so on. I'd just like to take this opportunity for a very quick advertisement. There are 2 brochures here which I think have been distributed. If not, there are copies in the preparation room where you can pick it up. One is a brochure for our World Citizens Association, and we're the organisation which is actually promoting and pushing the idea of a global parliament within Australia. If you'd like to help in this enterprise, then let me encourage you to take a brochure, join up if you will, and help us push these ideas. The second one is a brochure about the campaign for UNPA, the United Nations Parliamentary Assembly. That's probably the most lively campaign going on right now, led particularly by the German Committee for a Democratic United Nations. And they're proposing an assembly, a parliamentary assembly, made up of parliamentarians from all member nations, which would be a subsidiary to the General Assembly, can be set up without requiring any change in the Charter, and would just be the nucleus or the example, I suppose, for a genuine global parliament which might evolve in the future. And Bob Brown himself has stood up, I think, twice in the Australian Senate and proposed endorsing the UNPA. He got heavily voted down both times, but it's an idea worth supporting. And so if you take a brochure, you can go online, you can express your support. It's an idea which has got support from all the regional parliaments, the European Parliament, the Pan-African Parliament, the Mercosur, the South American Parliament. I think virtually all the regional parliaments have endorsed it, but as far as national parliaments go, Argentina is just about the only country that's signed up as yet. But it's a good idea, it's a brave venture, it's worth supporting. Finally, I'd like just to say that I congratulate all of you on taking part. Don't be intimidated by these grand surroundings. Let's hear you give forth, give us your opinions, and good luck for the event.
Why do we need a global parliament? Well, as a sort of housekeeping, members are please requested to confine their interventions to 3 minutes. We have about half an hour, 30 minutes to discuss this for this general debate. And we would request members of Parliament to raise their hand to show an interest to make an intervention and to speak on this debate. And each member will have 3 minutes. Thank you. And to please stand up and identify yourselves when you are given the floor, and also to identify not only yourself but also the group or the region that you represent. I have interest from the World Indigenous Networks. Honourable Member, if you have 3 minutes.
We need a global parliament to evolve globally accepted ethics in which there is no difference between children of lesser God or children of greater God. Thank you.
My name is Riyaz. I'm from near South City. I want to say that right now we are living in a globalized world in which all the issues have flocked from the regional arena to the global scenario. Now the one issue in one part of the world has a large impact on the other parts of the world. For example, the globalization, for example, the earthquake, for example, the climate change, for example, the brain drain, for example, the regionalization, for example, the trade, for example, the marketing, for example, all these scenarios. In this thing, the issue or the problem of one part is not the part of that regional era, but that issue is, for example, the terrorism, for example, the conflict, for example, the poverty, for example, the hunger, malnutrition. In this regard, if there will be the model global parliament, if there will be we have to advocate for the global citizens, then everybody should have the equal rights, everybody should get the should have the equal rights and equal vote. And in that scenario, they will raise their voice on the global scenario and they will address this issue. For example, at this time, if we are divided on the regional groups, if we are divided on the regional issues, then the attention is directed on that regional focus. But if it will be on the global in nature, then these regional problems can be brought into the global arena and then their solution can be found there. Thank you.
Honourable Member.
The thinking of the past. The delegates that have spoken before me have spoken of the realistic concepts of international affairs. The idea that sovereignty exists only within a Westphalian concept. But the MGP, as we know it, is something more. It has to transcend the boundaries. We do not represent singular nations here. My colleague in front of me represents Southeast Asia and Oceania. close to 1 million people. Ladies and gentlemen, our laity in the World Parliament of Religions represent Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, all the major Semitic faiths, and every minor faith. So ladies and gentlemen, let us move beyond the concepts of Westphalia and move towards a more consensual and ultimately a more progressive form of parliamentary debate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
But as 100% support your motion, and we need a new approach, we need an alternative. We need a global parliament in order to develop and support new mechanism for governance, security, justice, and socio-economic capacities. And we also need a global governance or global parliament to overcome such issues and stigmas, and we have to bypass this issue of us facing them or the West facing the third world countries. It's time for every state to stand up and deliver what they could and be heard instead as well. Thank you.
The honorable members of MGP, I would like to draw your attention on the need of MGP, why we require MGP. Because if we go back around 40 to 50 years back, we can't even consider the concept of MGP. But due to the techno advancements, now we are interdependent, all the nations are interdependent on each other. One issue affects the other. If there is conflict in one country, you can't live in the peace in another country. There are so many issues which are interrelated. And if we want to solve in the interest of humanity, we have to come forward and we have a one global agenda and we have to work on that. And to solve that agenda, we need a one parliament where we can decide, we can come on the all the interested issues, and we have to take the note of the issues and come on the solution. So the solution lies only in MGP, and MGP is the need of the hour, so we have to think about it. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fellow members, parliamentarians, global citizens, lend me your ears. I come here to say that global parliament is what unites us, not divides us. And as my esteemed colleague from the World Parliament of Religion has mentioned, these just two dates in human history, 1919 and 1945. What do they represent? What they represent is in history, in times of great catastrophe, in which us as human beings have faced a disaster of tremendous proportions. At the end of it, we come to realize that there is no way that we can solve the problems without a united voice. There is no way we can prevent something like that from happening again without coming together and resolving our issues through consensus. And because of that, we see entities like the League of Nations, like the United Nations, which are formed for that reason. And that we, as the Model Global Parliament today, hopefully will be another step in that process, in which we hope to represent the various nations with the various different issues and conflicts and help resolve those problems. And as a step in that progress, we must remember that fundamentally, we as parliamentarians must represent the people that we stand for, be it the honourable delegate colleague beside me, representing Africa, or the trade unions that me and my colleagues will be representing. We should remember that our power comes from them, and we must represent their values and interests, but in light of the consensus, in light of the need for a global solution. And it's only in that can we hope to achieve true solution that's more acceptable for the people that we represent. Thank you.
Representing corporations linked with UN Global Compact today, our position stands that we truly believe that Model Global Parliament should become a very effective institution. It should not become another paper institution which doesn't deal with real problems, but it should endorse all different groups on our planet and our group of corporations and business interests in collaboration. We should avoid becoming a new bureaucratic organization. We should become a truly effective institution which promotes market mechanisms, collaboration with business interests and with corporations. So here.
On this day, I would like to present from Europe about the importance of having this global parliament. We have some points here to address why we needed this model global parliament. The first thing would be about converging this world perspective, because, well, we have some delegates from volunteers worldwide, and then from Africa, from South Asia, and the rest. So we believe that we come from different perspectives and different interests. So here, the model global parliament will be very, very useful in order to synchronize all the different perspectives. Let me give one example here. Let's say about democracy. European democracy would not be really compatible to those in Asia. So we can't really impose those democracies directly into those Asian countries or in Africa, and vice versa. So we are from European region believe that this is a very, very good moment, a very excellent moment to start with, to engage and to synchronize those perspectives, difference in perspective. Thank you very much.
Changing time in a changing world with changing people. Defining ourselves in this world should be included in our agenda. My fellows, my friends, constituencies of the world, I call everyone to pursue a society of the well-being, of the well-living. Looking for this objective, we totally support a global parliament that leads our society to live in peace and democratically decide the best for everyone in the world. An equity world without devastating our environment, but sustainable, evolve our communities. Finally, I would like to say that money, economical wealth, will not take us to a fair and realistic happiness. Sharing the commons of our world, sharing them fairly and equally with everyone will allow us to build indeed a modern society. Thank you very much.
Should delegates be allowed to consider motions that focus on only one country? And I'll request the members to please dwell and deliberate on this question, please.
On this question that we're talking about right now, I want to say that this MGP is a global platform where we come out of our individual national identities and talk about global issues. And I think that we can talk about country level issues and regional level issues because it's a platform that can be used for conflict resolution also. And if we talk in front of a global arena, if we talk when we can't solve problems bilaterally, but we can talk in this platform and we can understand each other and solutions can come out from this platform, like common waters, like sharing rivers, and these kinds of problems can be discussed in this platform for conflict resolution.
I share the point of my colleague here that this platform can be used to discuss conflict resolution and issues related to conflicts, but I would also like to point out that there are country-specific issues which can affect the region as a whole. For example, the refugee issue in my region, Australia, can affect other countries as well, as we have seen recently. So not only does raising country-specific issues in this platform support conflict resolution, it can help address other issues as well. So I think indeed we should allow the HDP to raise country-specific issues.
It's the true expression of democracy. This is a place where different views on issues, on international issues, are to be respected. This cannot be the place to solve a single region's problem, but a global issue in itself. Let multiculturalism be the drive of global consensus. But let's go beyond rhetoric and construct motions with realistic measures. Thank you.
I take the point of our member for North America. This is a place, this is a model global parliament. We should transcend our nationalities, our ethnicities, our culture. But at the same time, we should not make model global parliament a place where we stifle debates on individual countries as well. Countries, conflicts like the Syrian conflict,
the refugee problems in Australia, poverty in parts of Africa, have the potential of impacting the globe and those respective regions. So while we should transcend our nationalities, we should also not stifle debate on individual countries, as that is a democratic right of every member of this parliament. Thanks.
To open up the debate on national issues, because we need to also protect the sovereignty of individual nations. So if we open up the debate on discussing country issues, we just need to be careful that sovereignty of nations is something that we need to preserve. So if the issues that are being raised could affect countries on a global scale, then there would be a platform for us to discuss it. But we just need to be aware that national issues cannot really be opened up to be discussed in a global parliament.
The issue here today is about, should we debate about one state's affairs in the model global parliament, which the speaker just put forth to us. I would have to, on behalf of the new mayor of the Global Seas, I would have to say no to that, because, for example, I'll give you one example. Europe and North America's industrialization of the last 2 centuries has affected the whole world. It has depleted the ozone layer. It has destroyed the environment. For example, another example, the Rio Earth Summit, with relation to that, the Rio Earth Summit failed. We failed to reach consensus. Why is that? We need to think about that. And now that the BRICS are rising, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, why is it that they're doing the exact same thing? Second example, is Japan's nuclear, program about Japan only? Is it just Japan that debates this? Or should we all be involved in the debate for them to recommence their nuclear program when, a nuclear-free New Zealand does now have contaminated fish in the fishery stocks? It affects all of us. And for your assertion that sovereignty needs to be upheld above everything of the model global parliament, I would have to totally disagree, because that transcends, and it's all transnational issues, and global problems require global solutions.
I believe that national sovereignty should be respected. At the same time, we need to address issues on the individual basis, because every state got a different problem, and therefore we have to address the root causes of the problem, which is to have to take and step by step on the individual basis, so we can, in which we would have a clear ends and a clear goal, in which we can reach our goals.
But in this regard, I'm neither optimistic or pessimistic in this effort, because if we think about the past or history of the human history, we have, as fellow delegates earlier explained, that in 1919 the League of Nations, and in 1945 after the World War II the establishment of the United Nations. All these things are the certain kind of global forums that where we try to discuss the global issues and find out global solutions for those problems. But now we are again talking about a model global parliament. So we need to think about why for example, why the United Nations was failed, and why we are trying to think in a different way. So so I think we need to think about what are the driving forces of these kind of global forums. What are the driving forces of the United Nations? And for example, after the 2001 9/11 attack in United States, when the United States decides to attack the Iraq, and that idea came to submitted to the United Nations. But in the United Nations Security Council, it was failed. But the United States go alone and they attack the Iraq. So what is my suggestion is we need to think about why the previous efforts were failed, and it would be a really good lesson for us for our future.
I think my point was that we need to actually respect the sovereignty of nations, because if we are acting as a parliament, then we would be passing legislations, or we would be passing policies that would bind countries. So at no point should we assume that we have jurisdiction over places that have national sovereignty. So the issues that would be raised in the global parliament are issues that would affect the world at a global scale. So we just have to be careful of the issues that we discuss at the global parliament, so that we respect the sovereignty of countries, but also I recognize that certain issues that affect unique countries would affect the world as a globe. So that was my point. I'm just saying we just need to be careful the issues that we open this up to.
National sovereignty, what my honorable member from this MGP talked about, As we know, today's era is interdependent. Any issue may be national or maybe global, that affects each country globally. So we can't say due to sovereignty, respect to the sovereignty of the country, we can't discuss that issue. We have to discuss that issue and come out with some solution. Suppose poverty is there in sub-Saharan countries, but these countries are unable to fight against the poverty. So this is a country-specific issue, but we can discuss in the global forum and we can come out with a solution. We can help the countries financially, technically, and the knowledge advancement so that we have the solution for the better humanity, better peace in the world in future. Thank you very much.
I echo the sentiments from the honorable delegate from Africa and the honorable delegates from the mayors of mayor of cities, and I will also focus on the potential risk that there might be the danger of turning a blind eye to those serious domestic issues if we just according to the previous sentiments from the honorable delegates.
Because my thinking, the agenda in the House at the moment is why we need a global parliament. And to me, with due respect, what I'm getting from my fellow delegates is what we need to discuss in a global parliament. While my thinking is why we need the global parliament first, then we move to ask ourselves what we need to discuss in the global parliament. So I think your that is whether we are in order to pursue the line of what we need to discuss or why we need to have a modern global parliament.
I think we've heard a lot from everyone, and I call for a vote to end this conversation by a break.
The Member of Parliament from the Global Civil Society Organizations has proposed a vote on this. So before we proceed on the vote on that motion, I would like to request you to vote on whether we should go on a vote for that. So those who agree to the Member of Parliament from Global Civil Society Organization that we should have a vote on this issue, can you say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Those members who believe that we should not go on a vote on this issue, can you say no?
No.
Ayes have it. Thank you. And so we shall now proceed towards a vote on this question. So the question for the motion for the question for consideration by the House is that whether the Global Parliament should consider motions focusing on one country. Those who agree with this, can we say aye?
Aye.
Those who believe that discussion should be done on a global basis and not focus on one country, can you say no?
No.
I think we need to go on for a division for this. A division is required to determine the votes for aye and no. So those of you who believe that motions should be proposed on the basis of countries should be allowed, can you please come to the left-hand side of the chamber? My left-hand side, your right-hand side. Those of you who believe that no, we should not accept any motion based on the countries, specific countries, on a global basis, could you please move to the right side of the chamber for a vote count?
Alright, so I think that's allowed.
Which way? Yes. For sovereignty, yes. Okay, sovereignty. No, yeah.
This is for voting.
I'm for national sovereignty.
No, but we don't want to discuss countries.
Oh, no.
We need to discuss.
Because then we're going to talk about Kazakhstan and democracy in Kazakhstan.
What about that?
Yeah.
Like this.
migrant visa. And of course, in and out.
We need to ask a few more questions. It's being taken as if immigration is being portrayed in a manner that's completely bad. That's not true. As an economist, I can tell you that there are countries, poor countries, which are benefiting from remittances quite a lot. There are countries who have 60% of the inflows coming in through remittances because of these people who have emigrated. So while we agree with the amendment, while we agree with the motion, that there should be financial compensation, we should not, say that immigration is completely bad. I also want to put an amendment which says that any tax that is put in place should only apply to people who have benefited from government-sponsored education from their home countries.
In this case, there is the word compensate for developing countries. I support the motion from the Global Science and Innovation, the amendment to the motion, where it says that the people who have been funded by their governments, they are supposed to return to their homeland after they completed studies or are skilled, should be given this type of penalty. But anyhow, there is no need for compensate for developing countries because, as you might remember, there are a lot of cooperation funds that go from developed countries to developing countries in terms of preparing people, skilled immigrants. And the fact is that cooperation funds have also been used to help developing countries keep their migrants at home. So basically, I don't think that this need for compensation is urgent because there are a lot of cooperation funds that are already being used in those types of mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you, Member of Parliament. Global Mayor's Leeds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to reiterate last time I stood and spoke to and I addressed the Speaker in the House. We're stressing this debate we're having right now should at least first hear what the global mayors have to say in terms of the draft motion that we put in for education. Right at the band, that's something that we've got a clear strategy for and a clearly defined outlining of what we want to present to the House to look into and consider and then debate about. But right now we're already debating about it before even hearing what the global mayors have to say. So I asked the Speaker in the House if perhaps we could go to the education section, have a look at the draft motion we've already got, and for us to address that in the House and then discuss and debate.
As per the rules of the procedure for the House, the discussion was interrupted until this motion that is being raised by the petition is resolved. The public implementation.
Sorry for sounding repetitive, but I think this motion is actually being confused. It doesn't always relate to education for skilled immigrants to move from one country to another. These are professionals. Some of them have been in their profession for a very long time in that country. They get an opportunity in a developed country, and it's just that the economy of that country is going to lose the services of that person when they move to another country. So I think we need to probably just tie our attention to the skills that these people are transferring from a developing country to a developed country. And what the government is saying is we want compensation, not for what we've invested in them educationally, but what the economy is going to be losing as a result of that skill leaving that country to a developed country. So maybe just turn our attention and focus it on skills, migration, and not necessarily students or education.
Thank you so much. On those recommendations. The point of order from the IUCN and the Sciences and Innovation Advisory Council.
The amendment that was proposed by us in North America, we're wondering if the supporter of the motion, they're okay with the amendment.
For the House, can you please, because there is a confusion whether it was a question or an amendment. If it is an amendment, I would request you to please state it now in clarity.
The amendment says that this motion should only apply to people who have benefited
from government, from scholarships.
Thank you. Does the proponents of the motion, given it is up online through the corporate communications, do you accept does the corporate communication accept the House will give you 1 minute to deliberate within yourselves.
It will be applied to people who have benefited from developing countries.
Thank you very much for comment, and I'm sure the proponents of the motion will consider that. For the decision first and then proceed. Does the component of the evaluation agree with the recommendation? Honorable Member, do you have a decision?
No, we don't accept the amendment only because when we read their cost of education, they are still immigrants, we are including a scholarship. The education can be free, can be subsidized, or can be a scholarship by the developing government, but everything is included already in the cost of the education of the immigrant skill.
Thank you very much. Amendment has been taken. I would also like to request the members that if you're proposing an amendment, please be clear, because I think when we are mixing up comments with statements and amendments, it can be a bit difficult for us to proceed with the discussion. So we will now take the motion to vote. Members of the House who support the motion, please say aye. Aye. Members of the House who oppose the motion, please say no. No. Can we have a show of hands for aye? Can we have a show of hands for no? No has the majority and the motion has been rejected. The House will now resume its operations and will return to the adopted order of business. To the last motion that is been tabled by University of Can we please resume that, the discussion on that? Can we have the motion on the screen, please?
I had my class today, isn't it?
Can we have a quick one or two comments from members before we take this to vote? This is the motion that was tabled before the
University of Sydney.
introduction by universities.
University of Sydney.
Do we have any comments from members?
Also about the war, peace, and religion.
Very interesting.
Do we have any questions or statements from the floor before we take to the vote? If there are no statements or questions from the floor, we will take the motion to the vote. Members who accept the motion, members proposed by the World Parliament Religions and you, will please say aye. Members who reject the motion, please say no. Can we please have a show of hands for aye? Well, that's it. That's aye. We have vote for no, please. Aye has marked and the motion has been passed. The House will now move to the next motion proposed by Latin America. Latin America, one of the members, please table the motion. Thank you. Do we have a member to second the motion, please? The motion has been seconded. Can we take the motion to vote now? In the interest of time constraints, we will move as fast as possible from now. Can we have a vote? Those who support the motion, please say aye. Those who reject the motion, please say no. The motion has been passed based on consensus of the jury. Thank you. We shall now move to the next motion proposed by Southeast Asia and Oceania. Southeast Asia and Oceania, if you could please table the motion.
Southeast Asia and Oceania would like to move that the NGP appoint a subcommittee to raise global awareness of human rights of refugees and asylum seekers.
Do we have a member to second the motion, please? The motion has been seconded. We'll take the motion to vote as well. Members who support the motion, please say aye. Aye. Members who reject the motion, please say no. Aye has won, and based on consensus, the motion has been passed. The House will now move to the next motion, introduced by Euro. Euro, please table the motion.
Honorable Chair, honorable members, guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged to be here and raise an issue which is unknown to most of us. This month, we, as European delegates, we're concerned with the human rights environment surrounding ethnic minorities in the People's Republic of China. And this motion sounds a bit special for stakeholders, but we strongly believe that major issues that we are facing today in the world has its roots and the main causes at the national level. So in order to solve those, it is inevitable and it is important to take further steps at the national level. And as I mentioned yesterday, from 1949, the Chinese government has been implementing harsh, repressive, and discriminatory ethnocultural policies against ethnic Uyghurs in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. And these policies have been violating their fundamental human rights, such as their rights to cultural education or freedom of speech or freedom of cultural expression and religion, and also disregarding key principles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other related international legal frameworks. And furthermore, in this region was a stage of 46 times of nuclear tests from 1964 till 1996. And according to numerous prominent researchers, academics, scholars, according to them, the peak of radiation dose in Xinjiang exceeded that measure of the root of the Chernobyl nuclear reactor after it melted down in 1986. And some were 3 magnitude explosions, 200 times larger than the bomb dropped in Hiroshima, 6th of August in 1945. And as a result, this caused around 194,000 deaths of Han Chinese and ethnic minorities, and 1.2 million people have been receiving doses high enough to induce leukemia, solid cancers, and fatal damage. And as we know, that this is not a domestic issue anymore. This issue has become so
Member, can you please confine tabling the motion? You can speak on the motion later. Thank you. Do we have member to second the motion, please? Thank you. I will now ask the proponents of the motion, Leo, to please table the motion in 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, notice this issue has become really serious since this nuclear issue is now happening at the regional level. Those states, Central Asian states such as Kazakhstan, America, Timor, some independent states, they are also getting the direct impact from these nuclear damages issues. And we strongly believe in the universal frameworks of human rights and humanitarian affairs and the coexistence of ethnic minorities around the world. And that's why we, as the European delegate, we strongly recommend the formulation of Special Monitoring Commission of Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs and dispatch to the region to investigate and report on and also monitor relevant issues and the environment. And finally, this is, we know this is no exaggeration to say that we are all involved in China somehow in some way. different forms or different levels. Our national strategic interests are there. But we have to keep in mind that this social instability of People's Republic of China has a direct impact on China's future prospects, of course, but also our future prospects in different realms. Thank you.
Thank you, Member of Parliament. We will now move to discuss the motion from the corporations, please.
Representing corporations linked to the UN Global Compact, we are interested in the global peace, global stability, and we are concerned about this motion. And may we propose an amendment that that special monitoring commission would cooperate with the authorities of China People's Republic of China.
Has the amendment been accepted by the proponents of the motion? Do you accept the amendment?
The special monitoring commission should consult with the Chinese People's Republic of China authorities.
Honourable Member, can you please clarify the amendment because there seems to be some confusion. Can you please clarify the amendment again?
Yeah. Special monitoring commission should consult the official authorities of the People's Republic of China on the matter of that investigation.
Does the proponents of the motion agree and accept the amendment?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I think we strongly believe that it is like significantly necessary to get support and also support from the Chinese authority as well in order to carry out.
The amendment okay, yes, the amendment has been accepted. And you, of course, the proponents will have time to clarify later. At this point, we'll move to Law Teacher. Honourable Member, Law Teacher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. North Asia strongly objects to the European motion for the formation of a monitoring commission for human rights and humanitarian affairs, in so much as Europe has chosen to specifically target the legitimate internal affairs and impede the national sovereignty of one specific state. North Asia rejects the notion that China has acted in an inhumane fashion with respect to the Uyghur and instead posits that China's efforts at entrenching nationalism have been misread by the international community. North Asia respects this Parliament has acknowledged the right to move country-specific motions. However, this issue is not only, in the view of North Asia, redundant, but also irrelevant in the global context, and as thus is inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. The Global Science and Innovation Advisory Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this up. Human rights and minority rights are a global issue, and as such, we propose an amendment. The amendment that we propose that the Minority Commission should not be confined to just China, but have a global perspective.
Has the amendment been proposed by the IUCN and Innovation Science Advisory Council accepted by you? Do you accept the amendment?
Yes.
The amendment has been accepted. And now we'll move to the World Parliament on November Parliament.
I'll be very quick, Mr. Speaker. Just another amendment regarding this particular aspect. Now, we fully and full concurrence with the honourable delegates of Europe, but the World Parliament of Religion is also concerned with the amount of religious freedom that is in the People's Republic of China. Xinjiang is, of course, a largely Muslim part of the People's Republic, and they are not allowed to convene. Therefore, we would like to add an amendment to say, to essentially monitor the levels of religious freedom that are permitted by the central authorities in the Xinjiang self-autonomous region. Thank you.
Thank you. Has that amendment been accepted by Europe in the legislation before? Can you please repeat the amendment? The amendment from what the House understands is that this refers to also Muslims who are being, according to
they're not being allowed to convene, essentially, to practice anything.
So you're proposing that that is included in the
that should be included as a concern.
So do you agree with that concern over Muslim rights being included into the state? Do you agree with that? You know, the Union delegation has agreed with the amendment. The House Clerk, do we have the amendment taken into account? the House Committee decided to accept the third amendment. No revisions.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. We believe that the amendment made by the World Parliament for Religion is actually contradictory to the second amendment that was made, which was to generalise the focus of this commission. The third amendment actually specialises the focus once more into China and into the Xinjiang province, and this directly contradicts the second amendment. So one of these amendments needs to be tabled. Thank you very much.
The House would seek clarification, the World Parliament religions. Member Parliament, after you speak, we may have to go on a vote on this specific issue, not the motion, but this issue of accepting the amendment. Honourable Member Parliament for the World Parliament religions.
Gentlemen and Honourable Speaker, it's not a contradiction to the second one. We're not setting up a monitoring organisation to essentially convict the central governments of China of curtailing religious rights. We're simply saying that it is a concern. It's a concern of this Parliament. And indeed, it's been accepted by the tabling delegation that it is a concern. It doesn't in any way impede upon the actions of the Second Amendment of this particular clause. And it's just simply a concern that has been raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Parliament. North Asia, to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Delegate from the Parliament of Religion. Well, I take your point well into consideration that it is indeed a concern. It is a concern of local authorities, and you are referring to a concern of national authorities. Now, if you were to include it as the First Amendment did into a global scale, then we would probably agree with you, as would most of this Parliament. But as it is a concern that concerns simply the national authorities of the Parliament of China.
Members of Parliament, it seems that the debate here is whether number 2 and 3 are exclusive of each other or one either or. So I propose that we go on a vote to, not a motion, but to those who accept that both amendments should remain, please say aye. Those who say that the third amendment should be struck off, those who say, those who say that both amendments should be there, all three of them say aye. Those who believe that no, we should not do that, please say no.
No. Please clarify.
Can we have some clarity on the third amendment, please?
What we are voting on.
Those are the first amendment. We did the amendment first, and then we do. So once the third amendment is incorporation, we will go on the vote of that, we accept it or not. Given that the European delegation has not rejected the amendment, the House will now vote whether to accept the third amendment or not. So those who believe that the third amendment, as outlined on the screen, should remain, please say aye. Those who believe that the amendment should be rejected, please say no. No. No has marked, and hence the amendment will not be incorporated. And the proposal amendment has been rejected. We will resume the discussion on the motion now. Are there any other members who would like to speak on the motion? The trade unions, please.
When you say the right of ethnic minority, shouldn't that include everything inside religion, language, culture, and everything? So what is the point of looking at religion separately?
The House will now go on a vote on this motion. But before that, we will actually ask the European delegation to briefly summarize the responses.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I'd like to respond to the Honourable Delegate from East Asia. And this issue has been the main discussion topic for our Parliament, our European Parliament at home, as a part of our policy against minority discrimination. And we have to keep in mind this nuclear issue is not just a domestic issue. It already has spread all over Central Asia and it's become a main concern for all these states of Commonwealth of Independent States. And also we have to keep in mind that, as I mentioned, we are deeply involved in China, like in different forms. And we have a moral and also reasonable responsibility to prevent any form of social instability, serious instability from happening in the region. Otherwise, they will directly lead to catastrophic consequences in different realms and various realms. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Parliament. The House will now go on a vote on this motion. Those members who accept the motion, please say aye. Members who reject the motion, please say no. No. We will need a show of hands, please. For those who say yes, please raise your hands. Those who say aye, those who say no, please raise your hands again. Aye has one majority, and the motion has been passed. At this point, the House would like to make a request to the ICTU, the International Confederation of Trade Unions, that your motion regarding Operation Health and Safety is postponed to the next session of the Global Parliament because of time constraints, which will allow us to discuss the in that case, we will actually hear from the ICTU on their motion for this session. So, would the ICTU please say with the motion, please?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We consider that health and safety as the main pillars of decent work and the 16th target of the 8th goal of MDG is implementing strategies for decent work for youth. So, considering that, we propose for a protocol that all nations, rich and poor, should ensure minimum standards of occupational health through reducing workers' exposure to workplace hazards and pollution risks.
Thank you very much. Do we have a member to second the motion? Thank you. We will now request ICTU to please speak on the motion. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. We all know about the ILO conventions, but I'm talking about the developing countries. In many developing countries, and in fact, per week, the workers spend around 40 to 44 hours per week in their workplaces. And in many developing countries, the workers work in appalling conditions. They don't have gloves, but they're dealing with toxic chemicals or hazardous chemicals in leather industries. There are many boiler explosions are found in many developing countries. And also, there are few indoor air pollutions in which they're working for 8 hours a day. And these has consequences in their health, in long-term health consequences, and they might also have consequences in their future generations. So, in that, considering all these facts, we call for this motion to be
Thank you very much, Member Parliament. We shall, the House will now discuss the motion. Member Parliament from the corporations, please.
Thank you. We would like to support the motion passed by International Confederation of Trade Unions. As responsible corporate members, we definitely care about the health of our employees, and we want to make sure that in all these environments, the health of employees are safeguarded.
Thank you, Member Parliament. Member Parliament, please.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Just a quick question while we do support the principle of this particular piece of legislation. The International Labour Organization's convention obviously covers the wouldn't this simply double up on some of the work that the ILO already does? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further comments on the floor? If you do not have any further comments, we do have comments on Latin Americans.
In addition direction you're asking for information and what is your stance on that? How will you address it?
Countries don't have these measures in their industries in place. So what I'm asking for is boost up, so that the developing countries take up this motion and they regulate their industries to implement these occupational health measures.
Thank you.
The House is in session, and members of Parliament, the agenda item number 3 is on education. We have the honor of Professor Glenn Withers to address the members of Parliament, address the House today. Professor Withers is a professor of economics at the Cour School of Public Policy. He is also the founding CEO of Universities Australia. Professor Withers, thank you for addressing the House today.
It's provided for most of the people in poor countries in Africa and Asia. There is a question of quality of the education, and we propose an amendment that that education should be of good quality. Yeah, because quality question is very important in terms of education.
Member Parliament, you proposing an amendment? Or is it a comment? Are you proposing an amendment?
Well, let's say it's a comment.
Okay, please clarify. We request all our members to do the same as well. Do we have any other comments? One Parliament of Religions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to clarify here that free and compulsory education for children is already protected under the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And the current challenges is on the implementations. However, several policies in many countries already in place protecting this right, as well as efforts conducted by government and non-government. And therefore, I would like to propose that the efforts that we're going to do under this proposal should complement the existing efforts instead of creating new ones.
And Jeremy from New Zealand as well. So we'll be taking a few pictures. That's a great photo.